This is the story of a road trip gone terribly wrong. A story I'm going to tell you, not because I want to scare you, but because I want you to never ignore the strange little feelings in your gut. Because sometimes, they're trying to save your life. It happened 2 summers ago. Me, my friend Aaron, and my cousin Lena decided to go on a road trip across a few states. Nothing too wild, just a fun week exploring small towns, camping near lakes, and enjoying freedom from work and school. We packed everything into Aaron's old van: maps, snacks, a tent, a Bluetooth speaker, and of course, too much soda. The first few days were perfect. We hit the road, sang along to our favorite songs, stopped at diners that looked like they hadn't changed since the 1950s, and even saw a few cool roadside attractions. Everything felt light and happy until the 4th night. That day, we were driving through a long stretch of forest highway in a state I won't name, mostly because I still get chills thinking about it. No towns for miles, just thick trees on both sides, the kind that let almost no sunlight in. It was late afternoon when we realized we were running low on gas and food. Our GPS wasn't working properly out there either. It kept spinning or freezing. So, we started watching the road carefully for any signs of a gas station or even a small town. Then we saw a narrow side road, a rusted metal sign next to it that said, Wolf Hollow, 6 miles. It wasn't on the map, and we had never heard of it before. But what choice did we have? So we turned in. The road got rough, full of cracks and potholes. The trees leaned over us like they were trying to block the sky. We joked about it at first, saying stuff like, "Watch this be some secret vampire town," or "Let's not get sacrificed by hillbillies tonight." You know, dumb road trip humor. But the farther we went, the quieter we all got. Even the radio started acting weird. Static, then silence. Finally, we reached the town. Or what was left of it. Wolf Hollow looked like something frozen in time. And not in a charming way. The buildings were old and falling apart. Some had boards over the windows, others looked abandoned for years. There was a gas station, but the pump was so rusted I didn't think it could still work. We parked the van anyway and stepped out. There was no one, no people, no sounds, no animals, just silence. Lena said, "Maybe this place is just empty now, like a ghost town." But ghost towns don't have lights on in the windows. And we saw one. Just one. In a building that looked like it used to be a general store, a soft yellow glow flickering through the dusty glass. We walked toward it, and the closer we got, the colder the air felt. And then, just as we were a few feet from the door, we heard it, a whisper. It wasn't loud, it wasn't clear, but all 3 of us heard it, like someone saying something just out of range. We froze. Aaron tried to laugh it off. Probably the wind, but the trees weren't moving. There was no wind. Still, he pushed the door open. It creaked like an old coffin. Inside, the shelves were mostly empty. A few dusty cans, broken boxes, and that light, an oil lamp, burning on the counter. And behind that counter stood a man. At least I think it was a man. He was tall, thin, with skin that looked like dried leather. His eyes were pale and wide, like he didn't blink much. He didn't say a word, just stared at us with a crooked smile. We all stood there, unsure what to do. Aaron finally stepped forward and said, "Hi, we're just passing through. Do you know if the gas station works?" The man didn't answer, just kept smiling. Lena tugged my sleeve and whispered, "I want to leave." Then the man raised one bony finger, and pointed toward the back door of the store. He still didn't speak, just pointed. I said thank you, grabbed Aaron's arm, and started backing up. But Aaron was still staring at the man like he was in some kind of trance. I had to pull him hard to get him to move. We rushed out, got back to the van, and that's when we noticed something that made my stomach twist. There were handprints all over the windows, not ours. Smaller ones, greasy, smeared, like from children's hands, but no kids in sight. Aaron started the engine. It sputtered, then died, tried again, dead. Then we heard the laughing, not loud, not happy, just wrong, all around us. High-pitched giggles coming from the trees, the buildings, the shadows. Lena was crying now. I was shaking, my eyes scanning every direction. And Aaron, who never gets scared, just kept whispering, come on, start," over and over while turning the key. The giggles grew louder. And then, something ran in front of the van. A small figure, pale, barefoot, too fast to see clearly. Then another one, and another. We were surrounded. Aaron screamed and slammed the key again. The van roared to life. He floored it, not even checking the road. We hit a pothole so hard I thought we'd flip, but we didn't stop. We kept driving, fast, until Wolf Hollow was far behind us. We didn't stop again until we saw a real gas station miles later. Bright lights, people, noise, safety. The van worked fine after that. GPS came back. Phones had signal. It was like none of it had happened, but we all knew it did. None of us ever spoke about it again. Not really. We finished the trip early and went home. Aaron sold the van 2 weeks later. Lena started sleeping with her light on. I still have nightmares sometimes, and you know what's the worst part? A few months ago, I tried to find Wolf Hollow on the map. Anywhere. I checked online, even asked some road trip forums. No one's heard of it. It's like it doesn't exist. But I know it does. We were there. And if you ever find yourself on a quiet forest road and you see a sign pointing toward a place called Wolf Hollow, don't go. Even if you're out of gas. Even if you're lost. Just turn around and leave. This is the story of a road trip that started like any other. Fun, exciting, full of plans and laughter, but ended in a way that still haunts me when the night gets too quiet. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. No lies, no exaggeration, just the truth. Because what we saw out there was real. It was last fall. Me, my best friend Jack, his girlfriend Emily, and my cousin Rachel decided to take a road trip across the country. Nothing fancy, just 4 friends in a car, heading west to see the mountains, sleep in motels, and make memories before life got serious. Jack had just gotten a new car, well, new to him, and it was the perfect excuse to hit the road. The first few days were perfect. We drove during the day, found random diners at night, took turns making road trip playlists, and played stupid car games to pass the time. Emily brought a camera and kept snapping photos of everything. Sunsets, gas stations, even random trees she liked. Rachel made us laugh constantly with her weird stories and made-up songs. It felt like something out of a coming-of-age movie. But things changed on the 6th night. We were somewhere in the middle of a long highway stretch through Nevada. No towns, no gas stations, no houses. Just endless desert and rocks. The sun had gone down, and we were running low on gas. Our phones had no signal, and the GPS froze up. Jack said not to worry. We'd come across something soon, and sure enough, a few minutes later we saw a sign. Welcome to Drayton Ridge. 4 miles. The sign looked old. The paint was peeling. But it was the only option we had, so we took the turn. The road was narrow and dusty, full of sharp curves. The trees got thicker the farther we went, which was strange considering we were just in a desert. I remember thinking how quickly the scenery changed. Too quickly. The air felt heavier, colder. When we reached Drayton Ridge, it looked like one of those small forgotten towns that you only see in black and white movies. Old buildings, cracked sidewalks, barely any lights. But there were signs of life. Sort of. A few windows had dim lights behind them. We even saw someone slowly walking across the street. But they didn't look at us, just walked stiffly, like they were half asleep. We found a small gas station at the edge of town. Jack pulled in, and we all stepped out. The pump looked ancient, but Jack tried it anyway. Amazingly, it worked. I went inside the little store to grab water and snacks. The bell above the door jingled when I entered. The place smelled like dust, and something else, something sour. An old woman stood behind the counter. She had long gray hair, a faded dress, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Evening," she said slowly. "Hey," I replied. "We're just passing through. Just need gas and a few snacks." She nodded, but didn't say anything else. Just kept staring. I grabbed a few things quickly and came back to the counter. When I looked at the register, I noticed something strange. It wasn't plugged in. In fact, there were no wires anywhere. Just an old, dead machine. But she pretended to ring it up anyway, pressing the buttons like she was stuck in time. "That'll be $5, she said. I handed her a 10. She didn't give change. When I stepped outside, I noticed something was wrong. Jack and Emily were arguing near the car. Rachel was sitting on the hood staring at something in the distance. "What's going on?" I asked. Emily looked freaked out. "There's a kid out there, just watching us." I followed her finger. At the end of the street, under a broken street lamp, stood a small child. Couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. He was barefoot, wearing what looked like an old nightgown. His face was pale, too pale. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Jack waved at him. "Hey kid, you okay?" "Nothing." Then the kid slowly raised his hand and pointed at us. I don't know why, but that tiny gesture made my stomach twist. "We need to go," Rachel said quietly. We got in the car, fast. Jack started the engine and drove back the way we came. But when we got to the edge of town, the road we had entered on was gone. I mean gone. In its place was a dead end. A row of trees. No road. No sign. Nothing. Jack slammed the brakes. "What the hell?" We all got out, walked around, checked the map, tried our phones. Nothing worked. Then we heard footsteps. Not one set, multiple. Coming from all directions, from the shadows between the buildings, from behind trees, from alleyways. Figures started to appear. Slowly. Men, women, children. All pale, all barefoot, all with blank faces. They moved silently, surrounding us without speaking a word. We ran back to the car, locked the doors, and stayed low. Emily was crying. Rachel was whispering prayers. Jack was frozen, staring straight ahead. Then, they vanished. 1 second, the crowd was there. The next, they were gone. I didn't know if we were losing our minds or if we had fallen into some kind of trap. But Jack didn't wait. He turned the car around and drove back into the town, looking for another way out. And that's when we saw the hotel, Drayton Ridge Inn, vacancy sign flickering in red. We had no other choice. It was almost midnight, and the gas was nearly gone, again. We pulled in, thinking maybe someone inside could help. We walked into the lobby, empty, but a key was waiting on the counter. No one behind it. Just one single key with the number 7. Room 7 was upstairs. We took it. Inside, it looked like no one had stayed there in years. The wallpaper was peeling. The bed sheets were yellow with age. But we locked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, and sat together in silence. That night, none of us really slept. We heard things. Footsteps in the hallway, scraping on the walls. A woman laughing softly, right outside our door. At one point, Jack looked through the peephole. He jumped back. His face went pale. "What did you see?" I asked. He just shook his head. "We leave at sunrise, no matter what." When the sun finally came up, we rushed out of the room, down the stairs, and out of that cursed place, and somehow, the road was back, right where it had been before, like nothing had ever changed. We didn't speak. Jack drove non-stop until we reached a real town. Phones worked, GPS worked. The gas station there was clean and full of people. We never spoke about Drayton Ridge again. Not really. But a month later, Emily developed a strange habit. She started covering the mirrors in her house at night. When I asked why, she said, "Sometimes I still see that little boy." That was over a year ago. Last week, I tried looking up Drayton Ridge online. Nothing. No record, no photos. Not even an old town history. It's like it was never there. But we know what we saw. So if you're ever on a road trip and you see a sign pointing to a place you've never heard of, especially if the town looks like it belongs in a different time, keep driving, because some towns don't want visitors, they want something else. This is the story of a road trip I will never forget. One that started with excitement and ended in something so strange and terrifying, I still wonder if it really happened. But I remember every detail. I need you to listen carefully, because this is the true road trip horror story of me, Ben, my girlfriend Sophie, and our friends Luke and Claire. It started last summer. We were all college students, finally done with our finals. We wanted to escape for a week, go camping, see the countryside, enjoy nature before getting dragged back into real life. So we planned a road trip. 4 friends, 1 car, and no specific route. Just the open road and a tent in the trunk. We left from London and drove north, exploring little towns, camping near rivers, taking pictures of hills and sheep and strange old ruins. The air was fresh, and we felt so alive. Sophie had this habit of playing horror podcasts during the drive, which we all laughed at. Except Claire. She hated scary stories. She told us to turn it off every time. We didn't listen. On the 5th day, we were somewhere near the Scottish border. The sky had turned gray, and a light rain started to fall. We were looking for a place to rest for the night, and that's when we saw it. A small wooden sign on the side of the road. Colmere, 12 miles. We hadn't heard of it, but the idea of finding a little village and sleeping in a warm inn sounded nice. So we turned off the main road and followed a narrow lane through thick trees. The forest around us grew denser and darker with every mile. Even with headlights on, We could barely see more than a few meters ahead. When we reached Colmere, it was almost sunset. The village was small, maybe a dozen buildings, most made of stone with moss-covered roofs. There were no streetlights, and everything looked still. Too still. Like a picture instead of a real place. We didn't see anyone, at first, but we spotted a tiny inn with a rusty sign that said, "The Whispering Oak." We parked and stepped inside. An old man greeted us at the desk. His clothes looked like something from the 1800s. Buttoned vest, long coat, high collar. He spoke slowly, with a deep, scratchy voice. "Evening," he said. "Passing through?" "Yes," Sophie replied. "Just for the night." He nodded and handed us a single brass key. "Room 3, upstairs. You're the only guests." That struck me as odd, but the room was warm, the beds were decent, and we were all tired. After settling in, we went downstairs to see if there was food, but the dining area was empty. No cooks, no other guests, just silence. That's when Luke said, "Let's check out the village." We all agreed and stepped outside. The rain had stopped, but the sky was dark and a strange mist rolled in. It clung to the ground and moved in slow, ghostly waves. We walked through the village square. No lights in the windows, no sounds, not even animals. It was like everything had paused. Then we saw the boy. He was standing near the well in the center of the square, wearing old-fashioned clothes. Brown trousers, white shirt, no shoes. He didn't move. He just stared at us. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were wrong. Too large. Too empty. Claire whispered, "Do you see him?" We all nodded. Ben said, "Hey there, are you all right?" The boy didn't respond. He turned and walked toward the forest path behind the well. "Maybe he's lost," Sophie said. Claire grabbed her arm. "Leave him. Something's not right." But Luke, always the curious one, followed. "Just a minute," he said. "I want to see where he's going." We didn't want to split up, so we followed Luke and the boy. The path led into the woods where the trees bent low and the mist grew thicker. We could barely see 10 feet ahead. The boy walked slowly, always just out of reach, not turning back. Then he vanished, just like that. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone. Luke stopped. "What the hell?" Before he could finish, we heard a loud snap, like a branch breaking under pressure. Then another, all around us. In the mist, Sophie grabbed my hand. "We need to go back, now." We turned around, but the path was gone. It was just trees and fog. No direction, no trail, no sign of the village. Panic set in. We ran in the direction we thought we came from, but the forest seemed to twist around us. No matter which way we turned, it looked the same. Endless trees, whispering leaves, that awful mist. And then came the whispering, soft at first, like wind. But it wasn't wind. It was voices, all around us. Too many, too close. I couldn't understand the words, but they weren't speaking. They were chanting, over and over. A language I didn't know, but somehow it made my skin crawl. Claire covered her ears and screamed, "Make it stop!" That's when we saw them. Figures in the trees. Dozens, maybe hundreds, wearing robes, pale faces, eyes like the boys, watching us, slowly moving forward. We ran. We didn't know where. We just ran. Suddenly, Out of nowhere, the village appeared again. Like we'd broken through some invisible wall, the square, the inn, everything back where it was. We burst into the inn, locked the door, and ran to our room. We didn't sleep that night. We stayed huddled together, every light on, watching the window. In the morning, everything seemed normal. The fog was gone. The village looked less creepy, more real. We rushed out, got in the car, and drove as fast as we could back to the main road. None of us spoke for hours. When we reached a petrol station, we asked the attendant if he'd ever heard of Colmere. He frowned. Never. You sure that's the name? We checked the map. The road we had taken, it wasn't there. We looked online later, nothing. No record of a village named Colmere. No pictures, no mention. It was like it had never existed. But we were there. We saw those people. We heard those whispers. And sometimes when I'm driving at night, I swear I see that same kind of mist rising near the trees, and I don't stop. I don't follow signs I don't recognize. I just keep driving, because there are places on this earth that don't show up on maps. Places that look like forgotten towns, but aren't towns at all. And if you go too far off the road, you might not come back the same. If you ever see a sign for a village you've never heard of deep in the woods, especially one that seems too quiet, don't go. Please, just keep driving. Alright, here's another true road trip horror story. You're gonna want to hear this one closely because it's not just creepy, it's downright terrifying. It happened to my friends Jack, Emily, Mark, and me, Sam, a couple of years ago. We planned what was supposed to be a fun summer road trip along the west coast of America. It turned into something none of us will ever forget. We all met at Jack's house early one Saturday morning. Jack was the driver, always calm and collected. Emily was the planner. She organized where we'd stop and where to sleep. Mark was the joker, always making us laugh even when things got tense. And me, I was just happy to be along for the ride. We loaded up Jack's old Jeep with camping gear, snacks, and music playlists. The plan was simple. Drive from San Francisco down to Los Angeles, stopping at small towns and campgrounds along the way. Nothing too wild, just a few days of sun, road, and freedom. The first day went great. We hit Highway 1, drove along the coast, stopped at beaches and small diners. The sun was shining, waves crashing, and the road felt endless. We laughed, sang, and took pictures. It was perfect. But on the second day, things started to feel off. We had left early and were driving through a stretch of road called Redwood Pass, a winding forested route famous for giant trees and sharp turns. The sky was overcast, and a thick fog began to roll in. Visibility dropped quickly, and the tall redwoods seemed to close in around us like silent watchers. Emily was navigating with her phone's GPS, but suddenly, the signal dropped. The screen blinked. No service. We tried again. Nothing. The map froze on a spot called Hollow Creek. I thought this road was supposed to be well traveled, Emily said, looking worried. Why don't we have signal? Jack shrugged, but slowed down. The fog thickened. The trees became darker, and the silence inside the car grew heavier. No birds, no animals, just the soft hum of the engine. After a few miles, we saw a rusty old gas station on the side of the road. It looked closed, boards on the windows, faded signs. But there was a flickering light inside, like someone was still there. We decided to stop. We needed gas, and maybe a bathroom break. Inside, the air was stale. The counter was covered in dust, but a man was sitting behind it. He looked to be in his late 60s, wearing a faded cap and a grim expression. No one else was around. "Evening," Jack said, trying to sound friendly. "Is the station open?" The man didn't answer at first. Then he nodded slowly. "Pumps, working." "Fill her up if you want," Emily asked. "Is there a restroom?" He pointed to a door in the back without saying a word. We pumped gas, stretched our legs, and went inside to use the restrooms. When I came back, I noticed the man staring out the window, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Everything okay?" I asked. He didn't turn to me. "Watch the road. Don't stop." "Why?" Mark laughed nervously. The man didn't answer. We got back in the Jeep and Jack pulled back onto the road. The fog had grown thicker, so thick it was hard to see the eye lines on the pavement. Our headlights barely cut through the white wall. Suddenly the radio crackled. Static at first, then a faint voice whispering, "Turn back, don't go. Danger ahead." We all froze. Emily turned the radio off, but the whispering kept going. It was faint, like someone standing just out of earshot. "Jack, slow down," I said. "Maybe we should turn around." "No way," Jack said. "We're almost at the next town." But the road ahead was no longer the smooth asphalt we'd been driving on. It changed into cracked dirt, broken pavement. The trees on either side seemed twisted, their branches reaching out like claws. Then we saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road, blocking us. At first we thought it was a person, but as we got closer we saw it was something else. Tall, pale, with long tangled hair hanging over its face. It didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there like a statue. Jack slammed on the brakes. The Jeep screeched to a stop a few feet away. We all sat frozen, staring. Then, the figure slowly lifted its head. Its eyes were completely black, no whites, no color, just dark voids. Emily gasped and turned away. Mark reached for the door handle. Suddenly, the figure vanished, like it had never been there. Jack looked around nervously. "Did you see that?" We all nodded, too shaken to speak. Jack tried to start the Jeep. The engine turned over, but then died. Nothing. We were stuck. I tried my phone again. No signal. That's when the whispering started again. Not from the radio this time, but all around us. In the trees, the fog, the air. Soft words impossible to understand but filled with warning. "Get out, get out, get out." Mark's jokes disappeared. His face was pale. "We need to get out of here." We grabbed our bags and decided to walk back to the gas station. The Jeep was useless. The fog wrapped around us like a blanket, and the forest seemed alive. Branches snapped nearby. Shadows flickered just beyond our sight. We hurried along the dirt road. After what felt like hours, we reached the gas station. The man behind the counter was gone. The flickering light was out. The place was silent. Suddenly, a loud banging came from the back door. We jumped, staring at it. Then it stopped. Mark whispered, "Maybe it's just the wind." We didn't believe him. We ran back to the Jeep hoping to fix it or call for help. When we got there, the engine started without a problem. Jack didn't waste time. We drove as fast as possible through the fog. Eventually, the trees thinned, the fog lifted, and we were back on a paved highway with cell service. We called for help and made it safely to the nearest town. The next day, we checked with the local police and the highway department about Redwood Pass and Hollow Creek. No record of a gas station at that location. No reports of people seeing strange figures. And the fog, They said it rarely formed that thick. We never spoke much about what happened after that trip, but sometimes, when I'm driving alone late at night and the fog rolls in, I think about that figure with the black eyes, standing in the road, warning us to turn back. And I always wonder, what would have happened if we hadn't listened? That's the true road trip horror story of Jack, Emily, Mark, and me. A trip that started as fun and ended in fear. A place on a map that maybe shouldn't exist. And a warning to anyone who ever finds themselves lost in the fog. Sometimes, the road you don't want to take is the one that saves your life. This is the story of a road trip gone horribly wrong. The kind that makes you think twice before you ever get behind the wheel again. It happened to my friends David, Rachel, Tom, and me, Lisa, about 3 years ago. We were all in college and craving a break from the stress of exams and papers. What was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway turned into a nightmare none of us will ever forget. We planned to drive from Denver to a small mountain town called Willow Creek, famous for its hiking trails and peaceful forests. It was late, September, and the leaves were turning colors, perfect for some scenic views and fresh air. David was driving his beat-up van that had seen better days, but it had enough space for all of us plus our gear. Rachel was the navigator, Tom was the music guy, and I was just the lucky one tagging along. The first day went smoothly. We left early morning, sang along to old rock songs, and stopped at a roadside diner for lunch. The sky was clear, the road was open, and we joked about the adventure ahead. By evening, we reached the edge of Willow Creek and found a small campground near a lake. That night, sitting around the campfire, Rachel told us stories about the area. She'd grown up nearby and warned us about a place called Devil's Ridge, a trail that locals said was haunted. We laughed it off, but there was something about the way she said it that made us all a little uneasy. The next morning, after a quick breakfast, we decided to take the hike up Devil's Ridge. The trail was steep and narrow, winding through thick woods with twisted trees and rocks covered in moss. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. Not a bird chirping, not a rustle of wind, just the crunch of our boots on the dirt. Halfway up, David stopped and pointed ahead. Look at that. There, carved into the bark of a huge tree, was an old symbol, kind of like an X inside a circle. It looked ancient, weathered by time. Rachel frowned. That's the sign. Locals say it marks the boundary where something doesn't belong. Tom laughed nervously. What? Like ghosts or something? I don't know, Rachel said, her voice serious. But people say those who cross it never come back the same. We shrugged it off and kept climbing. The air grew colder, even though the sun was out. Shadows stretched longer and darker. I felt like we were being watched. At the ridge, the view was breathtaking. You could see miles of forest and mountains, but the silence was oppressive. We decided to head back before it got late. That's when things got strange. On the way down, the trail seemed different. Trees looked unfamiliar. The path twisted oddly and the markers we'd seen earlier were gone. It felt like we were walking in circles. David pulled out his phone. No signal. Rachel checked the map but realized we were nowhere near the trailhead. Panic started to set in. Suddenly Tom stopped. Did you hear that? We all froze. From deep in the woods came a low, guttural growl. Not an animal I recognized. It was close, but we couldn't see anything. Let's move faster, Rachel said, but her voice shook. As we hurried, the growling grew louder. mixed with strange whispers, like voices speaking in a language none of us knew. The air felt thick, and the trees seemed to lean in closer. Then from the shadows, something darted across the trail. A figure, tall and thin, with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. We screamed and ran, branches whipping our faces, hearts pounding. But no matter which way we went, the forest kept shifting, the path disappearing beneath our feet. After what felt like hours, we stumbled into a small clearing. In the center was a stone altar covered in strange markings. Candles flickered around it, though we were sure no one else was in the forest. Rachel's eyes went wide. This is why the place is cursed. We wanted to run, but our legs were weak and the growls closed in. Suddenly, the figure appeared again, this time surrounded by more shadowy shapes. They moved silently, gliding toward us. David grabbed a fallen branch and shouted, "Back off!" Figures paused, then vanished as quickly as they came. We didn't wait to see if they'd return. We ran, following whatever vague trail we could find. When we finally burst out of the trees, the sun was setting, casting long orange beams over the mountains. Back at the van, we packed up fast and drove away without looking back. On the way home, we tried to laugh it off, but no one said much. Weeks later, I found an old news article about people disappearing near Devil's Ridge. Campers and hikers who were never found. Still get chills thinking about those glowing eyes and the altar in the forest. That's the true road trip horror story of how a simple hiking trip turned into a fight for survival. So if you ever find yourself near Willow Creek and someone warns you about Devil's Ridge, listen. Some roads lead to more than just a destination. Sometimes they lead to darkness you can never escape.